Yo, what's going on, guys? It is time for another reaction video, and this time I'm going to be reacting to 15 weird British culture facts, UK life habits, and stereotypes. Let's get straight into it.
I don't know how or why, but apparently it's been 10 years since I first moved to this quaint little island known as Britain. And over the past decade, I have amassed quite a long list of things that I find strange about the UK. And today I want to share some of them with you. The sentence, "you are right," is something you will hear all the time here in the UK. And my trouble with that sentence when I first moved here was that I thought it was a genuine question. Silly me. I thought people were asking me whether I was or was not okay. And these are some of the emotions it stirred up within me. Number one, confusion. Do I look like I am physically or mentally not okay? Number two, fear. Why are strangers going out of their way to ask me this? Are they being nice or are they very concerned either for themselves or for me? And number three, when I do go on to answer that question, why are they no longer listening? Well, if you've ever faced this dilemma, here is the solution. When asked, "you are right," by a British person, you just say it back, okay? This is because the question, "you are right," actually has nothing to do with you. It's just a form of greeting similar to the American, "what's up?"
What's up? What's up?
Point number two is,
or how's it going? Hello, how's it going? You don't really care how it's going. You just like, it's just something you do is when you see people in passing or in an elevator or something like that.
Is about bathrooms, and I frankly don't even know where to begin with this one. The British have managed to conquer most of the known world, yet they have somehow not managed to conquer the concept of taps that don't make you feel like you're in purgatory. I mean, it stings, it burns, it's uncomfortable. And for what? Why? We have invented taps that fulfill all these criteria, yet somehow...
It's funny, she said she's been there for 10 years, and when she speaks, you can kind of hear she's picked up a tad hinge of the British accent, not full-blown accent, but you can hear it kind of like at the end of her words. I noticed it a little bit in the beginning, but I'm noticing it more and more now.
You are not installing them, and that's all I'm going to say on the matter. But don't worry, we're not done with bathrooms because there are more quirks. Number two, let me take a breather because this one doesn't get me so riled up. But number two, why are there no plug sockets in your bathroom? What if I want to charge my electric toothbrush? I know, I'm a modern woman, what can I do? What if you're a guy and you're trying to use clippers and you want to plug them in? What happens then? Silly. And
or a hairdryer.
Number three, and this is going to be my last point on the bathrooms, but my blood pressure is rising again because I'm about to talk about the monstrosity that is carpets in bathrooms. I'm talking thick, fluffy carpets in that one room that is full of steam and liquid and odors and just horribleness. Why would you want to have a fabric in there of any sort, really, but a fabric that is permanently attached to the floor that I have no idea how you clean? Do you?
I agree with her on that 100%. Every now and then you might come across a house here in the US with carpet in the restroom, but it's not very common at all. You might have like a little throw rug in there with tile or wood floors, but some much older homes will actually have carpet in there, and I too find that strange. It's just not, I don't really care for carpet in general. I'd rather have throw rugs and things like that on hard surface floors, but definitely not carpet in the bathroom. So I agree with her on that one for sure.
Does anyone want to argue with me about this, by the way? Because if you do, and if you have strong opinions about the benefits of having carpets in bathrooms, I would absolutely love to hear them. Our next point is queuing, and I am completely on the British side here. I think queues are fantastic. I love how orderly and organized they are. I don't love maybe how plentiful they are, but frankly, at this point, I've been here long enough that if I see a queue, I just go stand in it. Do I know what awaits on the other end of it? No, and I don't need to. Number four, we've got
queue, aka standing in a line here. I would say for the most part, people form a line or form a queue here, but you're always going to have those people who just think it's okay to cut in front of everyone. Excuse me, sorry. But yeah, I think it's proper and fair to wait in line for your turn.
tutting, and this can often go hand in hand with queuing, especially if there is somebody who is breaking the unspoken rules of the system. And what will happen, instead of somebody telling you off or saying, oh, you're doing it wrong, go to the back, whatever, they'll go. Quite often they won't even make eye contact, because for a British person, that could be a little too confrontational. Another great example that comes to mind here is queuing on escalators. The way escalators work here in the UK is you stand on the right hand side and you're stationary. On the left hand side, however, you're supposed to leave space so people can walk if they're in a rush. If somebody were to break the system, as people, especially tourists, often do, tutting would probably be expected. And I have myself tutted at tourists, and it was incredible because it made me feel like I was finally being accepted by my adoptive brethren.
I find it annoying even just walking in general when people are just, taking up a whole walking space, whether it be a corridor, walking through a mall or whatever. And they're just walking slow and they're just moving all about, and you keep trying to go around them and they just keep, doing their thing. It's very frustrating because I walk really, really fast in general. But I always kind of in my head, have the joke of like, if they walk like this, they probably drive even worse. They're probably even worse behind the wheel of a car.
Kick off number 5 with a fun little number. Did you know that here in the UK, people drink more than 150 million cups of tea every single day? Now, to you, the term tea might mean many things. You might think of green tea, you might think of black tea, you might think of herbal tea. But here in the UK, it really only means one thing, and that's English breakfast tea with milk. And there are 4 main brands that everyone seems to buy, and that's PG Tips, Twinings, Tetley, and the other one, Yorkshire.
I've actually had Twinings tea, but I didn't drink it British style. I think the one I had was meant to be an iced tea, or at least that's the way I prepared it, as I made iced tea out of it, and it was really, really good. I first tasted it in New York at a pizza place. And I actually asked them, I said, hey, what kind of tea are you guys using here? Because I eat out quite often, and quite often we'll have iced tea, and a lot of the times it's pretty bad. And they told me the brand. I immediately pulled out my phone, found it on Amazon, and by the time I got back to Houston from my trip, I had my Twinings, or I actually thought it was pronounced Twinnings, but now that I see it's a single N, Twinings is correct. But yeah, I already had it waiting for me by the time I got home, and was eager to make my sweet tea with it. So it was really good, but maybe I need to try it British style.
Tea. And I don't think I've ever been to a British household that didn't have one of these on their shelf. And I think that's beautiful. I like the certainty of knowing what to expect. Sandwiches are just a huge thing in this country. Most big supermarkets in the UK, like Tesco, Asda, or Sainsbury's, have something called a meal deal.
Since I've been doing a lot of reactions to Britain, I've heard the name Tesco come up quite a bit, and I'm assuming it's like a grocery store or a supermarket. Maybe somebody can tell me, is that like comparable to just like a regular old grocery store? Is it more along the lines of what we have here, like a Walmart, which is a really giant grocery store, as well as like goods in general? You can get just about anything at a Walmart. But yeah, what is Tesco? Is Tesco just a grocery store?
Where for somewhere in between £3 and £4, you can get a sandwich, a snack, and a drink, which frankly is a very good deal, especially if you're going out for a quick lunch.
If that price is still accurate, that's amazing, because like anything here, sandwich, chips, and a drink, you're talking probably $10, $12 or more, and that's like at just about any sandwich shop.
Or whatever, and the selection is astounding. It's amazing. At Christmas time, you will have like stuffing sandwiches with turkey. I think that's the only time of year when you have special sandwiches. But truly, it is incredible, and most people have favorites, and when they go to buy a meal deal, they will try to get the most value out of it that they possibly can. There is a guy by the name of Max Fosh here on YouTube who does something called ranking people's meal deals, and I absolutely love watching them. Point number 7, let's make the oh so logical leap from the topic of sandwiches to social class. Now, meal deals can actually be a pretty good predictor of somebody's social standing and background, but an even better predictor is their accent. Here in the UK, it is truly incredible. You can pinpoint where somebody is from or where they were born to the street sometimes. If you've ever heard of George Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion or My Fair Lady, you'll already know what I'm talking about. The way a person speaks, the things they say here in Britain can be used as a pretty reliable predictor of social class, and it's something that is still at the forefront of people's minds today. It's something that people are very aware of. And I know this is the case in every country. People, wonder what another person's background is, but it is just so obvious in many ways here. And there are so many terms for people who belong to different social classes. A person from the upper class might be called posh, very common word. It might be called a toff or a sloan, which is a term derived from Sloane Square I think it's in Chelsea, where a lot of rich people live.
I've definitely heard posh, but I've never heard these other two.
And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, some working class people might be described as chavs, although this is a specific subsection of that bigger group, or they might be called scallies. There's a lot of words, but many of them are derogatory, so we're gonna move on.
In the US, you can kind of get an idea of regions, north or south, west, east, maybe central, but narrowing it down to a specific state, maybe a handful of states you could do that. But I think in American culture, even though we might grow up in a region, we hear music from all over the place. We watch movies from all over the place. And so I think, a lot of our accents kind of get mixed in as you grow older and you're maybe exposed to more accents over time, that everybody kind of starts to sound the same, but there is definitely a difference between a northern accent and a southern drawl, and perhaps somebody East Coast versus West Coast. But yeah, I mean, you might be able to place some people, but a lot of people maybe not as easy as you think.
To our next point. When I first moved here, I thought there was breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it turns out I was completely wrong, because here in the UK, those names are completely open to interpretation. For example, you can get school dinner, which is actually lunch because you eat it at lunchtime. There's also the word supper and the word tea, both of which can be used to describe dinner. And frankly, I
use supper here sometimes in the US. I don't personally. I always say dinner. Tea, I wouldn't associate that with a mealtime, but I guess it would make sense there.
I haven't fully figured out the distinction between these. It really depends on where you come from. So in the north of the country, people might use different words to people in the south, and different families and different social classes might use different words as well. So it is truly a minefield. In number 9, we've got pet names. There is an infinite degree of nuance and so many layers to the way in which these terms of endearment are used. But here are a few examples. A girl from Essex, somebody from Towie, might use the word babes a lot, right? To refer to another person of a similar age. But then you get an elderly gentleman who might call you love or sweetheart, or maybe a dinner lady, school dinner lady who serves lunches. Yep, exactly. She might call you darling. And all of these terms I think are very beautiful, although sometimes can come across as a little bit sexist these days if men keep referring to young women as like sweetheart or darling in a slightly patronizing way. But overall, I am a big fan of this, and it just feels so quintessentially British. Number 10, and I'm sorry I didn't mention this sooner, is British politeness. There was a survey done a few years ago of more than 1,000 Brits, and they came to the conclusion that the average person says the word sorry a total of 8 times per day, and that 1 in 8 people apologize a total of 20 times per day, which I think is wonderful because I have or am quickly becoming one of them. At this point, I will say sorry to inanimate objects. If I bump into a table, I will probably apologize. The word sorry actually has mirrored uses. You can use it to apologize, but you can also use it to replace many other sentences. For example, if the weather's bad, you might choose to say, oh, I'm sorry the weather's bad, even though obviously that is fully out of your hands. You may also say something like, oh, I'm sorry that happened to you, although again, you weren't the perpetrator of whatever bad thing happened to that person. You can use the word to show sympathy, you can use it to soften your language, you can use it when stopping somebody in the street, say, oh, sorry, have you got the time? Or sorry, could you point me to St. Paul's?
I think this is very common in the US too, but regionally. And I don't know about the entire country, but I know here in the South, or at least where I'm at, that it's very common to be apologetic in a polite manner, you know? There's always going to be the exception to the rule. There's always going to be the people who don't carry themselves that way. And that's with anything. But yeah, I mean, like, I do it a lot myself, and often apologize for things that are absolutely beyond my control. It's just in the nature. But I wouldn't say it's the same throughout the entire country. I think it's regional.
Favorite building in London. It's so beautiful. On the topic of British politeness, I also want to mention that Brits sometimes have a tendency to be very indirect. And even the way I said that was pretty indirect, so you can see I'm learning. For example, if you ask somebody for their opinion about, say, the sweater, instead of saying, no, I don't really like it, they might say, oh, it's lovely, but it's not really my cup of tea, or it's interesting. Number 11, the British sense of humor. Do you know what I just said about Brits being really polite and kind? Well, forget all about that when it comes to close friends, because your close friends, if they are British, are just gonna make fun of you the whole time, and it's never gonna stop, and at some point, hopefully, you're gonna just join them, because if you don't, I dread to think what might happen. And yeah, it helps with growing thick skin. It helps to assess how close you are with someone, because if they are not ripping into you, you're probably not that close.
I miss that here in the US. Everybody's gotten so PC and butthurt over every little comment or every little statement, and everything is offensive, and I try to stay away from politics when I do these videos, but yeah, it's like the topic has come up quite a bit lately that comedians have a hard time even being comedians anymore, because everybody's just so offended by everything. It's not meant in the context of being mean. It's just being silly and being funny, and yeah, there's sometimes people who can cross the line, obviously. Like I said a minute ago, there's always the exception to the rule. But people just need to learn to take things in stride sometimes and laugh and like enjoy life, instead of being so getting their feelings hurt about every little thing. I mean, like doing YouTube, you have to have thick skin, you know? Like I get sometimes comments that aren't so kind, and I'm just like, whatever. You took the time out of your day to write a lousy comment, and I'm not going to even give it, you know, a second glance. I'm just, as soon as I start to see that somebody's saying something rude, I just delete it. I'm not going to waste my time with it, you know? I don't get offended by it. I don't get butthurt about it. I'm not going to cry about it or complain about it, or just move on.
Number 12, let's talk about British fashion. Obviously, the way people dress varies across cultures, and the UK is no exception. Now, I could mention a few things here, like the British love of fake tan and super short shorts, but I'm not going to do that. What I want to focus on instead, well, I mean, I've just done it, but what I want to focus on instead is the way Brits dress wrong for the weather. Scenario number 1. The first warm day of the year, and by warm I mean we've gone into double digits. Suddenly you look around you and everyone, virtually everyone, is topless. It's absolutely astounding, especially I would say in Scotland, where I lived a few years ago. The second the sun is out, the guns are out, just everything's out. Scenario number 2 is the opposite. It's cold nights, and on some exceptionally cold nights, I've witnessed things like a group of girls, age is irrelevant, walking to or from a club, I don't know, and they are literally not wearing tights or a coat, just a really short dress and high heels, and there can be ice on the roads, but that's their uniform, and I just am physically incapable of understanding how they don't perish.
I get that myself. Like I could see that. So I often say like umbrellas are pointless and coats are pointless unless you're going to be outside for more than 5 to 10 minutes. If it's raining and all you're doing is going a short distance, let's say for instance from your driveway to your front door, it takes more time and effort to get out that umbrella to run under it, and then now you're bringing in that wet umbrella into your house. Just the same as if you're driving in a vehicle with a heater on and it's warm, and you're just leaving the vehicle to go into your house or into a club or a bar or a business or what have you. And then once you're in there for 5 minutes, now you've got this coat and you're hot and you have to figure out what to do with it, right? So these girls, my assumption is, yeah, they're probably going through the cold in skimpy or little to no clothing from what these pictures look like, which is, fine, because they want to go out to the nightclubs and they want to look nice and attractive. And for the 10 minutes or the 5 minutes that they're outside, they don't feel the need to dress warm if they're going to go from a vehicle to indoors or from building into another building. So I see it. I can see why. Now, if you're just somewhere out on the ski slope and you're wearing shorts, well, that's a different story. That wouldn't make sense. I would think you should dress warm for something like that. Just my 2 cents.
It literally makes me feel like I'm David Attenborough observing a different species. Number 13 is trashy holidays abroad, and this one I love. This is something British teenagers tend to do after finishing their A-levels, i.e. graduating from high school. And basically there are only a handful of destinations these British teenagers tend to gravitate to. We've got Magaluf and Ibiza in Spain, we've got Malta, Kavos and Zante in Greece, and Ayia Napa in Cyprus. I may have left one or two out, but these are the epicenters of what can only be described as mayhem. Absolute havoc, utmost hedonism, cheap shots, scantily clad everyone.
I wish we had places like that here in the U.S. Everything's so commercial here, in the nightclubs and the bars. It's like you can transplant from just about any city or state throughout our country, and things are so similar. Every now and then you might run across something that's kind of eclectic or unique. But most of the venues, it's just like once you've done it, it's all the same thing. The music's all the same stuff. I've never been to any of these places, but I know Ibiza is very popular for the music scene, and it's somewhere I very much want to visit at some point. And although the DJs that play there come here to the U.S. as well, Americans just want to hear the hits. They just want to hear the same songs they hear on the radio. So it's kind of like, what's the point? Like if you want to hear all that, just turn the radio on. You can hear the same stuff. I appreciate more to hear new music or mixed music, and so I think I would very much enjoy the nightlife of like Ibiza.
I mean, it is awful and brilliant at the same time. I myself went on one such holiday after graduating from high school. I went to Ibiza, or Ibiza, as Brits like to say. And yeah, it was exactly what you would expect. If you are unfamiliar with this trend, I would like to point you in the direction of a very special show. The TV show is called Son, Sex and Suspicious Parents, and basically producers will invite a group of young people, and unbeknownst to them, they'll also invite their parents, who will then watch their young offspring from afar and judge them silently, and in the end, not so silently, for the various ways in which they've debased themselves.
That sounds like a very interesting reality show. I wonder if I can get that here. I have a VPN, so I can get it even if it's not available here. Tell me if you know. Tell me in the comments what network this would be on. We don't have here. I think Sky TV is what's really popular there. Tell me if I'm wrong on that. But is it available on something like Netflix or Hulu or one of these other streaming services? If I were to use a VPN and set my location to England, would I be able to find this program? Let me know in the comments.
That brings me to my next point, which is British TV. There are some completely outrageous shows on British TV. Let me open the floor with something called Gogglebox. Gogglebox is a show in which you watch people watching TV. Why? I'm not sure.
I guess that's similar to people watching me watching videos and doing reactions, but watching people watch TV, I don't know. I guess it's very similar to reaction videos. I would have to see it. It's kind of like people also say, well, why do you watch gamers play video games? Yeah, to see their reaction or to see like games, I guess is different because you want to see how good they are and maybe they're doing what you wish you could do, but maybe you're not as good at games. But just watching TV, I watch reaction videos because I like to see how other people react to something, and that's also why I create them because I like to learn by watching these videos. I'm learning about these other countries and these other places, and then I find it interesting when I watch. Like I like to watch the New Zealand family, and they do most of their reactions to American culture, and so I think it brings you closer together to see how people react to the differences. So depending on what kind of TV they watch on Goggle, whatever that show was called, um, maybe it's to see if people have similar feelings about a particular show as what you do. Are they perceiving it the same way as you, or do they see it completely different? So maybe there's something to learn from it.
There's Naked Attraction, where you choose a date based on looking at several people inside transparent boxes that slowly reveal every inch of their naked bodies, including the inches. Need I say more? No. Then there's another show called Dogs Might Fly, in which they literally teach dogs how to fly a plane. And don't worry, there's more. There's Carjackers, where people steal their friends' cars and turn them into something else, like a giant chicken nugget or a miniature space shuttle. And even the normal TV shows are a bit weird, like 8 out of 10 Cats or Come Dine With Me, which is currently in its 46th season. That's mad. And when I say weird, by the way, you should know that, yes, I think objectively these are really strange concepts, but I also think they are hugely enjoyable. All right, we've reached point number 15. This is by no means the full list of things I find weird about Britain, but these are the 15 that I chose to open this topic up with. If you would like to hear more, by the way, do let me know. Don't forget to like and subscribe, etc. Now, my final point are those X's that some Brits choose to end text messages with. The X's represent kisses, and as a teenager, I used to hugely overthink this, especially when texting people I was potentially romantically interested in. I would look at the X's and then be confused as to how many I was supposed to send. Was I supposed to send any? Am I sending the wrong message? What does 2 X's mean vis-a-vis 3? Am I too much of a flirt? Are they too much of a flirt? Am I not enough of a flirt? It was a complete minefield. Now, as an adult, I have made the executive decision to just not care, because people use them in different ways. Some people use them to flirt, some people use them to send to friends, some people use them because they don't know how to finish a text message without them. Don't forget to subscribe, give this a thumbs up, and I will see you next Friday.
That being said, like she said, don't forget to subscribe. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, but also there'll be a link in the description below to her video. So if you like her video and her content and you want to see more from her, you can go check out her channel at that video, and you can subscribe to her as well. I'm focusing a lot right now on Britain, England content, but I'm going to start venturing into other countries. So if you guys have suggestions of other videos I should be watching on Britain, please tell me in the comments. And if you have some other countries that you think I should check out, tell me those as well. And then it's come up a couple times recently, people asking if I have a shipping or mailing address, and I do. It is also in the video description below. So if you want to send me something, feel free to do so. I'm not asking anybody to send me anything, but if you decided you wanted to send me something, I would like to do a video tasting a lot of snacks and what have you from England. So if that's something you want to do, hey, I'll be happy to accept it, especially if it's stuff I can't find here in the US, because a lot of times when I watch other YouTubers do taste test of American foods, it's funny because a lot of the stuff they're tasting you can't actually even get here. It's like it might be a brand that we have, but it's some obscure flavor I've never even heard of, which gives a bad impression of that product. So I'd prefer to get the stuff that's actually from there versus something that's an American version of what's from there. So yeah, with that being said, Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.